Hello, how are you?
Good, but nervous, but good.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. Just watching you, honestly, over these past few months, we've gotten so close, right? Because, we also do the one-on-one calls inside of the academy, and I've just been able to witness how incredible your relationship with food has evolved and also who you are as a person. I know, of course, we're still working on things and stuff, but you've just truly come so far in so many different areas. And this is just going to be fun. It's going to be chill. And honestly, people are going to be so inspired by your story. I'm sure they're going to be able to relate to a lot of things that you've gone through and now that you've overcome. And I remember telling you, before you even joined the academy, I shared with you a few client videos and testimonials, and you're like, that is helped me so much. And
I
that was
remember
a
watching
really,
those.
yeah. And that was such a big, help for you. So for you to be able to be that support and that help and that inspiration for other people, it means so much to me. And you're also going to help so many other people. So it's going to be amazing. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I love it. Yeah, all the feels, right?
Yeah.
All the feels. Okay, so before we even dive in, why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, maybe what you do for work, anything that you want to share before we dive in.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Jasmin. I'm live in New Zealand. And yeah, I guess for work, I left my full-time job about a year and a half ago to kind of follow something that was closer to my passion. So I work part-time in sustainability for events, and then part-time freelance doing kind of marketing and social media and that kind of thing. A little bit for myself and a little bit for other sustainable businesses. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. And honestly, when you signed up and you're from New Zealand, I don't think you understand how excited I was. I'm like, my brand is going across the
Expanding
world. And
global.
yeah, it's literally
Yeah.
going global. And I'm like, how cool that we can work together. You're across the freaking world. And it's just been amazing. So I just love that you're from New Zealand and we can do all of this. I can support you with your, with binge eating, and oh, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I think that just goes to show that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can get support. You are deserving of support, and there's nothing holding you back.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and it's funny enough, it's worked so well. Despite the ridiculous time difference, it's worked so well. It's like I've been able to show up to calls, we've been able to, have our one-to-one calls, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy how I don't know if it's a 16-hour difference, I think, or something.
Yeah,
It's
I do you know, I still don't even know. I just
well, we
know
know
that
it's the next day after for you.
yeah,
So
we just know the times that work.
it's quite far. But we've
Yeah.
made it work, and you've showed up for yourself, and it's been really beautiful to witness. So for everyone, watching and listening, Jasmin joined my 4-month signature group coaching program, the Ditch Decade Diets Academy. And, as I said when I first started this, she has really come so far with not only her relationship with food, but even her view on investing, her view on exercising, working out, her body image. So I'm just so excited for you to even share, Jasmin, as we're starting here, where were you before joining the academy? What was your dieting history like? What were you struggling with? Talk to us a little bit about where you were prior to coming to me and joining the academy.
Yeah, so I think for me, my journey started when I was I think I was 16, which is the first time that I kind of um, delved into that whole kind of world of dieting and wanting to lose weight and that kind of thing. It was when I was 16, and yeah, it started off as just kind of me wanting to be healthier, that kind of thing, but I had no prior knowledge and no one to kind of guide me or anything like that. So I just very quickly turned to the internet, and it just began a very, downward slope for me. And I got, essentially became very obsessive around food and what I was eating and losing weight, and I was losing weight and I was getting kind of, people noticing and that kind of thing. And for me, I've always had like a very kind of obsessive and kind of like perfectionist personality, like naturally. And so, yeah, for me, it kind of became something that I was noticing. I was seeing results, and it was something that I could kind of focus on. It was something I could control. And yeah, it was also at the time where I was kind of finishing high school and that kind of thing that came next. And it became something for me that I was controlling my food, I was controlling my body, I was controlling my grades, all of these kind of things. It was like I felt like I had no idea where I was going next or anything to do with that. So it was like, okay, these are the things that I can like narrow in on and focus on. And yeah, as I say, like it was something that, I became very obsessed with that, with losing weight and with controlling my food and with, knowing exactly what I was eating and counting calories and all of that kind of thing. So that kind of continued on for a few years, and it was something that, it controlled so many aspects of my life, but at the same time, it wasn't something that I felt like I could let go of, because it was like, well, this is an area of my life I've got control over, and people will see me as, the one who's healthy or the one who lost weight and that kind of thing. So yeah, that definitely continued on for a few years. It got to, I think it was like around the beginning of the pandemic, where I kind of almost like went from one kind of lifestyle to then, you're then all of a sudden at home the whole time, that kind of thing. And I had a lot more time to reflect. And that was the kind of the beginning of the time that I started noticing that like it had gone far too far and I actually wasn't healthy anymore. And that was basically the first kind of time that I actually started looking at my life and being like, I know that this isn't working. I don't know how to get out of it, but it's not working, and I need to do something about it, because this isn't the life that I want to live for the rest of my life. Like it's so controlling, it's so obsessive. It's meaning that I can't do all these things. It's like can't, have the relationships that I want to have. I can't have the life that I want to live, and that kind of thing. So I kind of, at that point, that was a couple of years ago now, I kind of started to kind of break out of some of these things by myself. And that's kind of what I was doing for the next kind of year or two. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of the progress that I made by myself. Like I kind of moved away from obsessively counting calories and that kind of thing. And, I was able to kind of gain back more freedom for myself, and I gained weight and that kind of thing. But during that time, I ended up falling into binge eating. And it was, now looking back, I very much realized that like that was just my body kind of trying to compensate from the years of like starving itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was something like all of a sudden I kind of had started building back this freedom with myself and that kind of thing. But I was noticing that I had just gone from one way of kind of dealing with emotions and situations that were arising and all of that kind of thing to something that I definitely wasn't where I was before. But I'm still noticing that, every time any kind of, anxiety arises or emotions arise, or that I have kind of any kind of, that was becoming something that was very evident in my life. And for a while, I just kind of thought maybe this is just part of the process. Like this is just something that's, and I went through kind of periods of time where it was better and periods of time where it was worse. And then at the start of this year, I basically I've had a whole lot of things happen with my family life and my personal life that have kind of tipped my life upside down. And I, again, found myself like quite isolated and with quite, anxiety inducing and stressful situations and that kind of thing. And I noticed that it was only getting worse now that I was forced to just be with myself again, because previous to that, I'd been using a whole lot of different things as distraction, which work until I stop. Yeah. So I'd noticed that I kind of, I knew that I was coming into this situation where I was going to be forced to be with myself and like face these things. And I knew it could go one of two ways, that I was going to kind of continue down the slope where something else was then going to take over my life, which it already was, I guess. And so I guess, I did what I knew how to do. And that was, went to the internet and started Googling, and I kind of listened to podcasts and, different stuff would show up on my social media and that kind of thing, the kind of content that I like to consume. And I don't even remember how or at what point, but you showed up. I don't even remember exactly how I found you, but I just know that somehow I did. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of different kind of people and programs and that kind of thing and podcasts and things that I probably come across before. But for some reason, kind of, when you reached out to me, and somehow we ended up on like a Zoom call. Yeah. And everything in me was like, I deal with things by myself. I get over things by myself. Like I work on things by myself. Like if I give myself enough time, or if I try enough different things, like I've got to fix things for myself. Like I'm never, I've always kind of have had this thing in my head that, I'm not bad enough or not sick enough or don't need, not bad enough to need help. So yeah, but there was something about, I don't even know what it was, but there was something about kind of, when we had that call and everything, and he was telling me to just like to not drop money on myself, to like just figure things out by myself. Like I can do this without any kind of program or coaching or support or anything like this. But yeah, I think I just kind of came to this realization that like there was this, there was something about it. I don't even know what it was. There was something about it, but that was anyway. I ended up saying yes, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this, because there was all sorts of things that I tried for a few days, and I was kind of like, I'd try things and then kind of dip out of things and that kind of thing. And I was kind of like, well, it's like food and everything isn't controlling me, to the point that it had been a few years ago. But I just knew it wasn't right. It was like I knew I could live my life like this, but I wasn't able to live it to my full potential. And I knew that every time I was hitting a point where I was really anxious or really stressed or isolated, or any kind of situation arose, like I was turning to food still, and I was still struggling with like, as soon as that happened, then I would gain weight, and I was struggling with my body image, and all of these different things were still like had a hold on my life. And I was like, it came to a point where there was only so far that I could go by myself, and that wasn't far enough for me. I was like, I need to, I want to make peace with this. Like, I don't want this to continue to rule my life like it has for how many years. So yeah, that's when I ended up signing up for the 4-month program, which was just like not something I'd ever done before. Never kind of invested in myself like that. Never kind of had any kind of coaching or anything like that before. So it was definitely something that like I wanted to run away from so bad. Like I think I remember too, like it wasn't even like I would like, before we had the Zoom call, it was almost like I didn't even like reply to your message straight away and things like that. It was kind of like, it was almost something I was trying to like avoid. I was like, no. Yep. Like everything in me just wanted to kind of run away from anything like that. But yeah, looking back now, it's like I know the progress I've made since then I would never have been able to do by myself. Like there was definitely a point that I could go by myself. And yeah, the peace that I've been able to make now with food, and the life, like the way that I'm able to deal with things now is just so different to back then.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like I just had chills. Like, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your heart and sharing your story. It is so beautiful. And it is so common to start off the journey of like, I'm doing this to be healthier, right? Because like you enjoy eating healthy, you like taking care of your body. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves thinking about food all the time, obsessing about calories, stressing over the number on the scale. And then it's actually like, wait, I did this to be healthy. And this is actually like the furthest thing from health.
From healthy that I'd ever been. Yeah.
It's wild, but it's so amazing that you came to this conclusion of, first of all, like, this isn't normal. And I honestly want to just commend you for even trying on your own, because I still think that's like so beautiful, right? Listening to podcasts and trying things on your own. I think that's really great. Like you are wanting to be better. And I think that's amazing. But I think when you got to that point where it's like, I think you were recognizing there's a difference between like managing the urges and like getting rid of the urges. And I want to kind of talk about this a little bit. You were going through really stressful times, like really difficult times. And that's when you typically would turn to food, right? So when you joined the academy and we were able to like work through these triggers and we were able to like, start getting rid of that urge to binge, you still had things going on in your life that are hard and stressful. Yet now you're not turning to food, right? You're not binging when things are going crazy. So why don't you share a little bit about that and maybe like what was really helpful for you?
Yeah. So yeah, that's 100% true. Like I've still got things right now in my life that are like really big and really difficult, but the way I'm dealing with them is so different. Like I was at a point right before I joined the academy where I was literally binging like every second day, which was like worse than it had been for so long. Because yeah, it was like, that was the way that I knew how to cope with these things. It was like, this is how I get out of my head. This is how I like, yeah, it was like, on one hand, I was like out of control, but on the other hand, it was kind of like a way of me being in control still. And the other thing I noticed was, and that I never realized quite how prominent this was until kind of a little bit through the program, but how much mental restriction I still had. In my head, I was like, well, I'm not physically restricting anymore. And I hadn't for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So I was like, why is this still happening? Because I'm not what I did know in my head was that like the physical restriction was causing the binging. But I was like, I've gotten rid of this like a year ago, 2 years ago. Like, why is this still happening? I didn't realize how prominent that mental restriction still was. And it was that part of my brain that was like, that has always wanted to, like do things the right way or do things perfectly or that kind of thing. It's like, there's this very prominent part of my brain that's like, that's just how I've always been. It's how I've been with school, with grades, with, with food, with exercise, all of those kind of things. So it was like, well, I'm physically doing all these things that I feel like I should be doing, but this is what's happening. Anyway, so it was, I think through the program and through our calls and through the modules and everything, I was able to just kind of just really uncover a lot of that mental restriction, where that was coming from, how closely, and it's funny because I was searching for this like quick fix, so closely related to food and that kind of thing. And what's been funny is that, and it's like, I know it's exactly what I needed now, but it was like how with the program, it's like, it's not really about food. Like, yes, we talk about binging and triggers and that kind of thing, but it's so not about the food. And that's the thing that I'd been missing, I think. Like, I think part of me kind of knew that, but didn't know how closely linked, like, my emotions and, that kind of thing were linked to this issue. Like, that's just how it was playing out. Like, that's how it was playing out. That was, that wasn't my big issue. That's just how the actual issues that I had and the emotions and triggers and anxiety and all of that kind of thing, that was how it was manifesting. So yeah, I almost can't even remember the question now, but
it's all good. No.
But yeah, it was a lot of that mental restriction that was uncovered that I was still holding on to.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many people like yourself okay, I know that I have to allow myself these foods. I can't physically restrict myself anymore, because every time I don't allow myself certain foods, of course, I'm going to want to binge on them. But then it's like, there's that sneaky mental restriction of like feeling guilty, judging yourself, feeling bad. And then also it's like, there's that one aspect as well too, which takes time to like rewire beliefs around like, our ability to be able to enjoy the foods that we want and feel satisfied and feel pleasure with food, right? And then there's also other aspect of like getting rid of that urge to binge, and I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit, because I know you've had times where you're like I didn't even feel the urge anymore. So like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, anything you want to share on getting rid of the urge?
Yeah. And I think that's the crazy thing. It's like, I think I kind of had in my head that like I was going to be learning that I kind of needed to learn how to manage that urge to binge and how to do something else or something like that. And what's crazy now is that like, it's very rare for me to even have that urge. It's like, that's such a foreign concept. It's like, I don't have these urges to restrict myself or to binge.
Yes.
Like,
oh my
God. Yeah. And I think, even when they do very occasionally come up, it's like, I know how to deal with that because I know what it's like to not have those at all and that kind of thing. It's like, so yeah, I think that's what's crazy. It's like, I came in thinking that I was going to learn what to do when that arose and how to deal with it and that kind of thing. And that's fantastic. And I definitely did that. And I had to utilize so many of those tools a lot more than I do now in the earlier days. But yeah, it's like, now it's like, I don't have these urges because I've kind of worked so much on that mental restriction and creating satisfying meals and all of these different things that like I needed to work on in order to actually just not have these urges.
Oh my God. Like that just like, it's like so exciting because like, did you even did you even think this would be possible?
No, I thought that, it's been, gosh, like since I was 16, it's been 6 years that food and my body and, all of that kind of thing has, like, that kind of mental talk, that mental voice has played such a prominent part in my life. And it's had times where it's been worse, it's had times where it's been better, but it's constantly been there for that long. So it's something that I was used to. It was like I couldn't imagine that not being there. Like I couldn't imagine just having, like, I was like, I don't even know what a normal relationship with food is, because I see these people who don't seem to have issues with food. Like they just, and I'm like, I was like, that's not possible for me, because I'm different. Like I'm not like that. Like yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's wild when you think about it. Like, wait, I can no longer feel this like driving force that's like driving me to eat all this food. Like I can actually not feel that anymore. And it's like, until you experience it, it's like, it's so hard to like imagine a life without it. But when you do, it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
I can actually go about my day and without like this crazy impulse, you know?
And so much more mental space.
Yes.
Like,
yes, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned, like, you tried distracting yourself. You've tried staying busy. Cause I remember that was like one of the things you were like, well, I would just like go out and do things, or like, I would just stay busy. And it's like, I remember telling you like, that's great. And yeah, you might not binge, but it's like, I want to help you get to the point where you can be sitting down on the couch at 6 o'clock in the afternoon and you have an urge and you don't give in.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something I've done all my life, like particularly in my kind of late teenage years, kind of going into my 20s. It was like, I was particularly in my late teens, like I was the person who was like always busy. I was doing as much as I could. And I never realized how much that was like a distraction technique from all sorts of different things. It was like, this is how I can like avoid thinking about things. This is how I can avoid like, all of these things that I know are issues in my head. But like, if I just keep busy, they're not going to show up as much until I crash and burn. And that's what I was finding, is I was just going in endless cycles of like being on and up and going down and going up and going down and being really busy and then burning out. And and I think it's crazy how much these things are all intertwined. Like I thought I had these kind of like all these different kind of separate things that I would struggle with, but they're all so intertwined.
Yeah. And even we talked about like, you're very, you remind me so much of myself, because you're a go-getter. Like you love challenging yourself. You love really stepping into like the best possible version of yourself. Like you're like, I want to do big things in the world. I want to make a difference. And I just like love that so much about you. But sometimes it's like, when we're that type of person that like always wants to be doing something, it's like, I remember us talking about like, I have to do to like be worthy, and I think so many people can relate to that as well. And I'd love for you to share, kind of your aspect on that. But it's like, for me, it's like, I felt like I had to be smaller. I had to be eating less. Like I had to be working harder. I had to be doing more because people are going to notice me. They're going to love me and I'm going to be more worthy. And I think you were able to like really relate to that as well too. So share a little bit about that and maybe what helped you separate your worth from like this constant hustle.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think I've never really known 100% where it's come from, because I felt like it's always come from myself. It's not like I've had, family members or friends like telling me like, like to earn my worth, you need to, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like I've had family who's told me that like I do too much or that kind of thing. So it's like, I've never really known where that's come from, but I've always had this internal pressure that like, I need to, be doing and achieving and be busy and that kind of thing to like be worthy as a person. And I never realized like how, like just quite how much I kind of felt that internally. Like it was never really something that was like, I know this about me. It was something that I came to kind of discover, that like, I literally like, I only feel worthy as a person when I'm like doing or achieving or, that kind of thing. And it was almost like I almost had this need to like prove to people that I was doing things, that I was busy, that I was, it was like I couldn't let anyone know that I was just not doing anything. And so because I was just constantly doing and busy, it's like even that, when I after school and like having, full-time work and that kind of thing. It's like I was always doing things on the side as well and just keeping busy and that kind of thing. And I only ever saw that as a good thing or something as like me kind of like trying to prove my worth or that I could do and that kind of thing. But what I realized is that like I couldn't just be and do nothing by myself. It was like, yeah. And it was almost like I almost even came to realize that even when I was doing these things that like were just kind of like, for me, it was almost like, say, for instance, like trying to have like a perfect morning routine or something. So it was like, I was just ticking these things off. So I was like, well, like I'm, going for a walk in the morning, I'm doing a workout, I'm like, making myself a coffee, whatever it is, all these things in the morning. But it had just become another checklist of things to do so that I could have like a perfect morning routine. And I didn't realize how, it was like I've always just had this part of me that just like needs to do things the right way or perfectly, or just, like need other people to see me a certain way. And realizing that, like, I hated that, because it was like, well, if I actually think about what I truly want and what I truly believe and what I truly value in other people, it's like, it's when they are just completely themselves and when they just have like such like a strong relationship with themselves and that kind of thing. And it's like, I hate the thought of somebody else thinking that I care about what they're doing or achieving or that kind of thing, because that's not me.
Yes.
But here I am doing it to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny how we can like see that in other people. Like, you're worthy. It doesn't matter if, you're this or you look a certain way, but it's like when it comes to ourselves, it's like we think we're the exception and we're different,
Yeah. 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 Like
Child.
when I actually think about like myself truly, it's like I couldn't care less what somebody else looks like, how often they work out or like what they look like or like even like what they're achieving. And I've even realized that like for someone who put so much pressure on myself to achieve for so many years, like career's not even that like one of the things that is most important to me in life. It's like for some people it is, and that's great. But like for me, yes, I want to do things that light me up, and I want to do those kind of things for work, and I want to do things that can help and do better for work. But like having a high achieving career just isn't even something I want. Like, it's like, I don't want to be someone who climbs a corporate ladder. Like, I don't want to be like hitting all these big boxes that society tells us we need to. Like, it's like, that's not even me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like I just let so much other kind of like external noise and societal pressures and that kind of thing like dictate what I thought I should be doing.
Yeah.
And then trying to, yeah.
And
So
I know even on like our one-on-one call, when we were saying like, when we focus on like what we should be doing, it's like we're never consistent. And like now you've gotten so much more in tune with your body, you're tapped into your intuition, and now you're like so consistent with your routines because you're just listening to your body.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing. It's like I was so out of touch with my intuition, and it was like almost like my idea of like being intuitive wasn't even listening to myself. It was like this idea of like what being intuitive should be. That kind of
another box of rules.
Yeah. Whereas now I just feel like I've learned to create that space for myself. And I think even through things like with breath work has been a huge thing for me to like actually learn to, having these breath work sessions with you, it's actually been like, okay, like creating space where I'm like, just learning to just like be with myself and do nothing without it creating like urges of like guilt or like I should be busy or turning to food and that kind of thing. It's like without needing something to fill that gap. And that's still something I'm definitely working on. But like I'm now able to kind of have a time or pockets of time where like I'm like, actually I'm doing nothing, and like I'm okay to like not only do that but like tell someone that, or be like actually like like actually having the space for myself in my life that like, yeah, like that's something I can do. I don't have to continuously be doing something, because all that was happening is that I was having pockets of time where I wasn't doing anything, but I was guilty for that. And I was constantly thinking like I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And my experience with times where I was quote unquote doing nothing was times where I was like really low or like really anxious or like feeling guilty and that kind of thing. So it was like I have this experience of like not doing anything or like sitting with myself, but it's a really negative experience. Or it's times where I'm turning to food to compensate or like that kind of thing. So it was like, yeah, it's almost been kind of like turning that into a positive thing, like creating new experiences with.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you mentioned about breath work, because it just helps so much with like intuition and being able to like slow down and calm down your nervous system. And I want to hear from your perspective of like how breath work has really served like just like any other area of your life, or even when it came to like, you know, the emotional eating or any other like areas that you feel breathwork has supported you, or anything that you were kind of surprised by how like magical breathwork is.
Well, firstly, like I think I was always kind of I'd always said like, oh, I can't meditate and I can't do all these things because I can't sit still and I can't like turn my mind off and that kind of thing. So the first thing was actually realizing that like when I'm actually guided through it and when it's actually someone who understands me and what I need and that kind of thing, like it is something I can do. I just have to like, firstly, I think practice like doing it, you know, not just being like do it once and be like, I can't do that, but also just having someone kind of guide that was like incredibly helpful. And now I'm kind of able to, you know, like go back to my breath by myself, like maybe not a big long session like we do one-on-one, but like I'm able to kind of utilize my breath by myself and kind of tap into that. But I think it was something that almost kind of like really helped in kind of like teaching me how to feel and like sit with emotions that would come up. Like I always just kind of like tried, like I am like a sensitive person, like I do feel like hard and deeply, but it was always something that I kind of like thought was wrong or bad, or like that I needed to kind of avoid and you know, or distract myself from and that kind of thing. So, and that's where I would end up on these cycles of like avoiding and then like crash. Yep. So I think it really has been something that's taught me how to actually sit with emotions or sit with feelings, and like that's not a negative thing. It's like this is actually a really human experience, like this is a really human thing, and I can sit with that and feel what I need to feel and move through that, which has been like a completely new skill for me to learn.
Yes, and that is such an important skill because we are emotional human beings, and we're going to have hard days. We're going to feel stressed. We're going to feel overwhelmed. We're going to be sad. We're going to be pissed off. And it's like learning how to process and feel and work through those emotions so that you don't turn to food is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think another thing too is that like for a long time, I'd also kind of had this label of being known on the outside, like as a happy person or that kind of thing. So it was only when I then came back by myself or like in my home that I would show these negative emotions and that kind of thing. So it was almost like I saw those as bad as well. So it was kind of like, this is not the me that I can show other people or that kind of thing. It was like, I'm meant to be the happy one or the one that's always upbeat. And I very much am a lot of the time, but I also have these negative emotions that are like very human.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone experiences them. And it's so beautiful to be able to cope and process and not like label emotions as like, this is a bad emotion, I have to get rid of it. And I think that's also what you've learned in the process too, right? It's like, we don't have to label emotions as good versus bad. It's like, it's just a fact. I'm sad right now, or I'm angry, or, you know, I'm experiencing jealousy or whatever. Like, that's just a fact.
Yeah. And exactly the same with food. It's like, I always had so many labels for everything that I hadn't even realized how much. It's like, yeah,
absolutely. So are there any examples of things that you want to share that you've been able to do now that you have a way better relationship with food now? Like, is there anything you want to share, like being able to like go out, or anything that you want to share that you're experiencing right now?
Yeah. I think a few things definitely come to mind. I think the biggest thing first and foremost is that over the last kind of like maybe 2 years, or 2 or 3 years, I've kind of been doing these things, but that mental voice has been so loud. So it's like now I can like share a meal or go out for a meal or something like that, and like it's just an experience I'm having, as opposed to I'm still, you know, before it might be like, okay, I'm still going out for dinner, but leading up to that, I'm thinking about it, and then I'm trying to choose something that's right off the menu or that kind of thing. And then afterwards, I'm like feeling that guilt or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like, I think the experience that I have with being able to, you know, eat, go out to eat, or like, just have different meals or that kind of thing that is so different now. Another huge thing for me is definitely like in my kind of extended family, like sharing meals or potluck meals, or that kind of thing is a very big thing in my family, and for several years. And it makes me really sad now, because it was like growing up, it was like almost like such a positive thing with my family, and it still always has been. But the anxiety I had around that was just so unnecessary. It was either something where I would like be so kind of like, okay, I'm going to have this, and I'm going to allow myself this and that kind of thing. Or it would be something where I'd be like, okay, stuff it, like I'm just going to have whatever. And I was trying to like eat as much as possible, because I was like, tomorrow I'm not going to be able to have these things, or I'm going to be better, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's been like thinking about recently, kind of like, family, gatherings with food and that kind of thing. It's just a different experience for me now, because I don't have like, it's like when I hear that something's coming up, I'm just excited. Like, and like before I was excited to see people, but the food thing was in my head. It was like, it was like taking up so much space in my head, whereas now I can just be like, cool. Like, and then it's almost like I then go to a table with food, and it's like, well, this is what I want. And it's like, I'm not necessarily having like, sometimes I might eat a bit more, sometimes I might eat a bit less, but it's kind of like, it's not this thing where I need to have specific amounts of food or specific types of food because they're either what I should have or because they're not going to be available to me later. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just a very different experience. And even like last weekend, like I was away for work, and like we got Thai food and sat in the park at 9 p.m. and ate it. And I was like, that's just something that like I just did. Whereas before that would have been like,
like
I
what?
would have been like
That would
spinning
never
out in
happen.
my head about it. Like, I have to do this because I need people to see me, but like, I don't have this weird relationship with food, but like, it was just something that I just did. And I was like, I thought about it later, and I was like, a year ago, 2 years ago, like I would have been spinning out about this, and I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just living.
Yeah. 100%.
Like literally just living. Like you just get to live your life now, because there's not that like such a loud, diet culture voice in the back of your mind. So, oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I love that so much. So as we are wrapping up here, I did want to talk quickly about just like the investment piece, right? And you can obviously share whatever you feel comfortable with, but I know it's like you've never done a program like this before. You never joined a 4-month program. You never hired a coach before in this sense. So like, and you're like, I'm going to do this. Like there was fear, but then you were like, I did it. And then your whole mindset, even around investing, has changed. So I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that, and even how your perspective on investing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely two aspects to it. The first is that I've always had a real fear of commitment. So I've always been like, well, I can't commit to something that's say 4 months, because I'm not going to be able to follow through with it.
Yep.
And there were almost like particularly during those 4 months, or particularly during the earlier months, I would have these kind of like voices coming up in my head being like, almost like trying to get me to quit, or to like retreat, or to like isolate, almost to, and this sounds so weird when I say it, but almost to kind of like prove to myself that I don't commit, or that's not me, or like I don't follow through with things.
Yep.
Which when I think about it, I'm like, what? But yeah, it was like, I've always had this fear of commitment because of the fear of it not being the right decision, or for it not going perfectly, or for the fear that I'm not going to follow through. So there's that aspect. And then there's also the aspect that I think I've always, or actually there's probably a couple more things, but there's always been this thing for me where I've always felt in kind of like lack around money. Like I've always been such a saver, but I've held on to my money tightly. It's been like, okay, I just, I've always found it difficult. And I think also I've always found it difficult to spend money on myself. Like it's like I'll quite happily spend money on other people because I justify that in my head. But when it comes to spending money on myself, it's like I feel like it's not justified. So I've always really struggled with that. And I've also always felt in lack around that. Like it's like no matter how much money I'm earning, it's like, well, I need to hold on to that tightly. So yeah, I think it was just like that piece on investing in myself, like an amount that I'd never done before. Like I'd never invested that much in myself before, let alone kind of invested in myself really at all in this way. It was like something that it was like in my head, it was like, I can't justify this for myself. So like, I shouldn't be doing it. So it was a real learning piece to me around actually like firstly, I can invest in myself. I can commit to something because I tried to run away a lot of times.
And I
But
caught
it was
you.
but it was like, this has been such like an incredible like proving to myself that like I can follow through with something. Also that like investing in yourself, like it doesn't need to be perfect every time. You know what I mean? Like you can, like it's like the act of investing in yourself is so powerful. Like just the fact that I invested in myself is like, it was a completely new experience. And it's just like proven to myself that I can do that. And that like, and then look at the result that I've had on the other side of that. It's like, well, I would never have been able to get here without investing in myself. And it's yeah, just having someone kind of in my corner who understands and who kind of like, can build a relationship with me, and like who can just see exactly where I'm coming from. And like I bring something up and I'm like, this sounds whack in my head, and I'm like, I wouldn't share this with someone else, but like, and then you're like, okay, like I know what you're saying, or like I understand what you mean. It's like it's made me realize like just the power of firstly investing in yourself, and also like in having a coach or like a mentor or something in that realm. It's like there's something that comes from that you can't get anywhere else. It's like there are things, like there are so many things that I could not have done by myself because of that power of one-on-one conversation, or the group conversations or group calls and that kind of thing. Like it's like I think I've just like, I feel like I really understand the value and the power of investing in yourself. And now I'm kind of seeing now, like there are so many places that I could go if I continue to invest in myself. And actually the better I can make myself, the better I can be for other people. And I think that's almost something for me as well. It's kind of like I'm not being the best person I can be for the people who I care about or for other people because I'm not the best person for myself. Like if I can heal myself and work on myself and that kind of thing, that's the way that I can be a better person for other people. And I can't do that to the best of my ability by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, even just like your self-worth, like it's grown so much. Cause I remember even like the second time that you've, recommitted and you invested and again with me, it was like this excitement of like, I'm going to be like my best self. Like I can't even wait,
Yeah.
and that's so different than like even the first time.
The fear was still coming up, but it was such a different experience. It was like, I don't know, it was like, this is the person who I want to be. Like, yes, it scares me, but I want to be the person who invests in myself and who wants to continue to better myself because I see the value in that. Whereas before it was like, I didn't see the value in that. And it was almost like, I guess, yeah, when I first came to it, it was kind of like, I need something that's going to fix me and that kind of thing. Whereas the second time it was like, I see the power of investing in myself and I want to continue to be better. And that's, and this is the person who I want to be. So even though I might not be there quite yet, I know this is the action that I need to take to be that person.
I love it. I love it so much. So powerful, so powerful. So if somebody was, in your position, before you joined and they're wanting to get some support, they recognize they have binge eating and there is maybe like fear or doubt or like how you were feeling before. Now that you've gone through the program and you're in such a completely different state with your relationship with food, what would you say to that person that wants to take that leap, but maybe, there's thoughts in their mind that similar to what you had prior to joining?
Yeah, I think firstly, like the process of like rewiring different parts in my brain, like I would not have been able to completely get to where I was now without that process. Like, I think there are other kind of different things I could have done or paths I could have taken or that kind of thing to kind of like, like to maybe stop binging, but like to actually be completely free from those urges and to not be masking it with distraction or, meal plans or control or that kind of thing. Like, I really did like, that's how I know now that I needed to get free from that, is to rewire those thought processes in my brain. And that's an incredibly powerful thing that I don't think, I think that's the process that I know I needed to follow. And secondly, I just think like, if it's something that you've been struggling with, like you're going to be able to get so far by yourself, but if you want to be free of it, like you actually, I think what it is like you can be free of it. Like I thought for so long that like it was always going to be something that was going to be underlying, you know what I mean? Like it was like I might go through better periods or something like that, but I was like, for me, this is how it is. Like this is always going to be a thing in the back of my mind. Like I can't heal from this. I can't be free from it. And so I think I would just say that like you can be, and there are people in this container, there are people in this group, you know, Lorna and, you know, so many other women in this group who like, they know they will be able to relate to so many of the things you're going through. Like it's almost like you find this community of people that like you thought you were alone, and you're like, there's all these people who are experiencing the same things as me. And that's incredibly powerful to actually be able to tap into a place where you can kind of like open up the app and be like, oh my gosh, like these people are having similar experiences to me. Or like, I know if I'm going to say something that like, it's not going to be something where people are going to be like, I don't understand that. It's going to be like, well, I've had this experience that's similar. So yeah, I definitely think like if something resonates in you, if you feel the pull, like you have to follow it, because like you can be free from this. Like you can be free from, you know, from food and your body and, you know, and your mind. Like you can actually have a really beautiful relationship with food and with yourself. And yeah.
Oh, I love it. It is possible. It is so possible.
100%.
And oh, thank you so much for just sharing your heart, like your transformation, your story, your heart, who you are as a person. Like I love working with you because honestly, you're such an action taker. And anytime I suggest something to you, you go and you implement. You're so open to change. You're so open to learning new tools. And I just love our calls because we can like go so deep and like you're open to that. And it's just amazing. So I'm so proud of you, Jasmin.
Oh, and I just want to thank you, because I wouldn't be where I am today without you. And you've taught me so many things, like not even just and how like I've kind of been able to break away from binging and, you know, from this restriction and mental restriction around food, but just like so many other things. Like, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so amazing. You're going to inspire so many women. And yeah, thank you for being here. Before we go, let's just take a quick photo because I'm so proud of you. This is like a big step for you, sharing your journey. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this thing. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. I can't wait for your message. Just get across to so many other ladies that need to hear this. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll chat in our Slack. Okay.
That's good.
Bye.